Welcome everyone. In this video, I'll go through the topics that I think are most likely to occur on the AQA A-level Chemistry Paper 1 exam. These predictions are based on my analysis of the 2024 and 2025 past papers and examiners' reports. There's a link in the description to a playlist that contains individual exam question walkthroughs related to the topics highlighted here. Let's get started. First, the big hitters. These are recurring topics which often carry a lot of marks. Acids, bases and buffers is a consistently high scoring section. Expect complex pH calculations involving weak acids, strong bases and buffer solutions. In 2025 there was a focus on calculating the pH of a buffer after adding small amounts of a strong acid and base. Electrode potentials and cells was identified as a poorly understood topic in 2025. Focus on calculating E cell and explaining what will happen to E cell if a change is made to a half cell. This can often be described in terms of equilibrium shifts. You should also be familiar with commercial batteries such as lithium-ion cells and fuel cells. You can expect a multi-step thermodynamics question. This could involve a Born-Haber cycle or Gibbs free energy delta G. A full Born-Haber cycle for calcium chloride was on the 2024 paper. For transition metals, focus on ligand substitution, shapes of complex ions, and the use of transition metals as catalysts, both homogeneous and heterogeneous. The following topics are due a comeback as they were underrepresented in the 2024 and 2025 papers. You can expect the high mark calculation involving Kc or Kp. The initial, change, and equilibrium amounts of substance should be recorded in an ICE table for clarity. You could also be required to work out the units for Kc or Kp. Make sure that you understand what is meant by the term entropy. You should be able to describe entropy changes, delta S, in terms of the transition states between particles, that is, from solid to liquid or liquid to gas. An increase in entropy also occurs in a chemical reaction where fewer particles become more particles. Don't forget that AS topics can still appear on paper 1. Trends in the properties of the period-free elements and oxides and their reactions were a significant part of 2024, but lighter in 2025. Avoid these pitfalls identified in the 2024 and 2025 examiners' reports. State symbols. Students frequently lose marks for unclear or incorrect state symbols in equations, particularly for enthalpy definitions or ions in solution. Be fluent with definitions and precise. For example, when defining relative atomic mass, you must mention me mass, mass of one atom, and the 1/12 the mass of an atom of carbon-12. If you can use a chemical equation or chemical equilibrium in your answer, it often helps with clarity. For example, with buffer explanations, when explaining how a buffer works, examiners noted that students who wrote an equilibrium equation first were far more successful than those who only used text. And finally, with calculation steps, examiners highlighted that jumbled numbers lose marks. Clearly label each line of your working. Make it clear what it is that you are trying to work out, and it's a good idea to include units even in process. I think it's always a good idea to start off with a mathematical equation, rearrange to make the unknown value the subject, and then and only then substitute numbers into that equation. There are 12 required practicals that you should be familiar with. Common questions involve writing a procedure, identifying mistakes in a procedure, and completing calculations to process results and calculate percentage uncertainties. For electrochemical cells, require practical 7, focus on the setup of a salt bridge and why it is needed. For pH curves and pH titrations, require practical 9, understand the half neutralization points or half equivalence points where pH is equal to pKa. This is critical for buffer calculations. Identification of transition metal ions required practical 11 is also a very common question. It is definitely worthwhile remembering the colours of the complexes and the precipitates with NaOH and ammonia. And one final note, these predictions are based on trend analysis of the 2024 and 2025 past papers and examiners' reports. They are intended to guide your focus, not to replace a comprehensive revision plan. You must plan to revise the entire specification. Prioritise your revision based on individual feedback, personal assessments, and areas where you feel the least confidence. Chemistry exams can be predictable. Be prepared for anything. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please post in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions. Take care and good luck with your exams.